All right. Welcome, Dwayne Natwick, to this here series on Journey to the Cloud. So we've invited you here today to talk certifications for CompTIA, IC squared, maybe a bit of AWS and others, and Microsoft, of course. Tell us a bit about yourself, Dwayne.
Oh yeah. Thanks, Matt. My name's Dwayne Natwick. I am a global principal cloud security lead for Atos, a global systems integrator and managed security service provider. I work in the on the big data security group on the security group and handle the strategy. Work with my team and my boss on strategy, marketing, portfolio. Guide, sales guidance, sales enablement, as well as advocacy.
Okay, all right. And obviously, you're the author of a good few books at this stage. Your most recent being.
Yep. Yeah, I actually have a copy right here. I've done 3 Microsoft certification prep guides. The latest being the cybersecurity architect. I've also done the identity and access management associate and the security compliance and identity fundamentals book. So I've hit all 3 levels: the fundamentals, the associate, and the expert. That was my plan all along when they came out with the security expert. I'm like, I got to do that one just my obsessive compulsive disorder. I have to have all 3. I had to have all 3. It had to be a complete set from that standpoint. So yeah,
Uh,
just released on Friday. Started shipping. So very
yeah,
excited.
yeah, and it's doing quite well by Amazon's count as well. Top rated book in there. So definitely something to be added to the trolley for all people studying the SE 100, the Microsoft Cybersecurity Architect exam. Dwayne, more importantly, you are a Microsoft MVP and a Microsoft Certified Trainer.
Hmm.
Just briefly for all those going down that journey, what importance of MVP and what it is, just a brief outline.
Yeah, I love being an MVP. I mean, really, you don't go out looking to be an MVP. It's more wanting to get out there and be out there and help the community, help the Microsoft community. I'm also an AWS community builder, which is a little bit similar. You kind of self-nominate yourself for that. AWS's version of the MVP is the AWS Heroes, but you still, one of the great things about both of those programs and the Microsoft MVP program is what you is the benefits of access to all of the community of MVPs, to the product groups and the product managers to get ideas on what's happening with the roadmap and provide input. You're almost like an extended member of the Microsoft team in a lot of ways. But the greatest thing about it is just the opportunities that it gives for additional community engagement and additional ways to share your knowledge, which as somebody that is a Microsoft certified trainer and has worked within a learning partner and has been developing content for a long time. I've always enjoyed sharing what I know with others, and whether that's on-demand training, whether it's through user groups or different events. That's one of the great things about being an MVP is the Microsoft community is such a tight knit community.
Yeah, and it really is. As an MVP myself as well, I find there's a lot of like-minded individuals out there, and the knowledge sharing is key for a lot of us IT professionals, whether you're UK based, Irish based, US based. It truly is a community of professionals helping each others. So look, as you said, it's a community you've to be nominated into, not something you get. So just that's that's some great information on it for anyone going down that route and who has been
Yeah, and if
nominated.
yeah, and if there's one thing I can say is don't just go out and ask an MVP to nominate you. You should know that MVP. involved in user groups or met them through other user groups or through community events. Before you say, hey, I'd really like to be an MVP. Would you be willing to nominate me to be an MVP? It's not, not something that you just decide, hey, I want to be an MVP, and you ask somebody to nominate.
Yeah, that defeats the whole purpose of it. It's you're
Yeah.
better off working as part of a group, or you've met someone on a meetup, or you've orchestrated some online training to mentor others in various certification or learning paths, or just general advice. So, without further ado, we'll just move on. So, what we're doing here is we're doing an informal chat just for anyone looking at it. We're going to start off naturally with Microsoft certifications, Dwayne. So, just for someone looking to navigate the Microsoft path, we know there's a lot of certifications out there. We know there are a lot of levels. You have your fundamentals, your intermediate, and your advanced. Where do you start with Microsoft certifications?
I always recommend, even though they aren't a prerequisite exam for any of the other exams, I always recommend starting with a fundamentals exam. So if you're new to Azure, or you're new to Microsoft security, or you're new to Microsoft 365 or Power Platform or whatever it is, the fundamentals exams are great. And if you're in a situation where your company will pay for it, or if your company utilizes ESI through Microsoft as being a partner with Microsoft, you might get those exams for free. But the fundamentals exams are less costly than an associate or an expert exam. So that's a benefit, one, and it also gets you familiar with how questions are asked. The testing platform, whether you're going to a testing center or you're testing from home, it gets you comfortable with how Microsoft tests work. Plus, it gives you that foundational knowledge that is really important to understand if you're new to cloud technologies. It really helps you out when you go to those more specialized associate and expert levels.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And with Microsoft certification, as always, there are plenty of intermediate level, as we can see here. This is just a brief snapshot for anyone looking at them. Plenty of paths to follow. What would you say about someone who is trying to figure out what path they want to go down, Dwayne? What's the best way of kind of mapping that out?
Again, the fun, doing the fundamentals exams gives you kind of that broad brush of a particular technologies. For somebody that's in security, for example, I always say, to kind of use that as kind of a foundational thought. Security compliance and identity fundamentals goes through Azure, it goes through Microsoft 365, it goes through Sentinel. So it's the entire Microsoft cloud platform. It doesn't get into like Power Platform and Dynamics so much, but it really, from a standpoint of infrastructure, platform, and software as a service products, it goes through all of those areas, and then you can really start to dig down deeper in, okay, I was really interested in in being part of of the identity and access management, and Azure AD really spoke to me and all of that. So then you can look at the identity and access administrator associate exam, or hey, I'm really interested in data protection. You've got the information protection administrator, and you can go down that route. And so the fundamentals gives you that foundational area, or I want to focus on Azure. You have the Azure Engineer, which is a broad brush of that, and you might take another step to specialize beyond that as well. So those are all, that's always the way I kind of say, you can kind of pick your own adventure if you think about you think about a role-playing game or something. You can kind of take your path the way that you choose and the way that you are interested. And Microsoft's done a really good job of getting very broad and very broad as well as very specialized in their certifications, especially around security, but around data, around AI, around Power Platform. Their their security paths, or I mean, not just a security path, their certification paths are much more. There's much more depth to them than any of the other two hyperscalers. Really, the other two hyperscalers have broad-based security or data or infrastructure based exams, and that's more or less it. Microsoft and has and yeah, about a little less than a year ago, they brought in an expert path for the cybersecurity expert, as I was showing the SC 100 book. There are prerequisites to that exam. There are 4 exams. Any one of those and the SC 100 exam gets you certified for the cybersecurity expert. So, so if you were to get my IAM associate book and my SC 100 book, those are 2 exams that would get you the expert certification. So, but you can go down that Azure Security Engineer, the Microsoft 365 Security Administrator, or that Security Operations exam, the Security Operations exam, I've actually done an on-demand prep course for LinkedIn Learning on that one, and that's one of the more fun exams too, because it goes through Defender for Cloud, 365 Defender, and Sentinel are all really, so if you want to get into the operations side of things and how to hunt and protect and remediate your data and identity and resources in Azure and Microsoft 365, that's a great path to take as well.
Just, I suppose, the SD 100 being Microsoft's latest, most popular exam. Before this, we had the Azure Architect exam, which is still very popular, obviously, but a lot of people focusing more on cybersecurity at the moment. Realistic advice for someone doing this. I mean, you're not going to have 1 year experience trying to take this exam. You're not going to have 1 year maybe of hands-on network security support roles, or you're not going to be working on a help desk trying to take this type of an exam. What is your advice there, just to be realistic for people going to sit this exam with a bit of experience?
Yeah, I mean, this exam really takes the entire cybersecurity framework. Microsoft did a nice job of building their Microsoft cybersecurity reference architecture, which is the foundation of this exam. This is an architect exam. It's not an administrative exam. So understanding how to architect and what components you need for within Microsoft for zero trust, for governance, for landing zones, all of those things go into this exam. Very, very similar from what they did with the AZ 305 for the solution architect expert exam. It is an architect exam, and the types of questions that you get on it are architecture based. They aren't hands-on in terms of what buttons do you push here, what buttons do you push there. It's understanding that to build a landing zone or to build a zero trust architecture, what components might you need, or what capabilities, what solutions are going to be your recommendation. And that's really what it comes down to. It's very much a recommendation based course, based exam.
I suppose the next question I'd have, Dwayne, favorite Microsoft exam?
My favorite Microsoft exam. I mean, the security exams as a whole are some of my favorite exams. Just they're some of the more recent exams, so they did a really nice job of putting them together. I mean, and taking lessons learned, I think, from the older exams. Um,
Okay.
from an architecture standpoint, the Easy 104 is one that's a really great exam. I actually took it. I took those exams when it was 2 exams to get the administrator
Yeah.
certification. And it was, at the time, Microsoft was just rolling out having hands-on labs in their testing portal. So that was fun at the time. They pulled back a little bit
Mhm.
on that when the pandemic hit, because they wanted to not have to utilize compute resources for exams while everybody was going online. But I believe they've started to re-implement some of the hands-on. But doing the hands-on portion is really fun, to have a
Mhm.
little bit of hands-on in an exam rather than just reading questions and trying to answer them.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so we've just discussed a bit on the Microsoft certification. Um, okay, so the next thing we're going to look at um is the ISC squared certification. So ISC squared are a well-known vendor neutral provider. Of course, with the recent announcement of the certified in cybersecurity examination, and having had both of us complete this previous, um, what are your thoughts on it in terms of an entry-level cybersecurity certification for people going down this route?
I just as I said with Microsoft, and starting with fundamentals, you've got to start somewhere. So if you're just starting your path in cybersecurity, I really commend ISC Squared for putting this course and this exam together. It's, if you take an instructor led course on this, it's only a 1 day course, just like a fundamental, like a Microsoft fundamentals course is. And the fact that it's vendor independent is really great as well. And it's really helpful then if you then take a path to a particular vendor. You've got kind of that foundational knowledge. And as you said, Matt, ISC squared is the gold standard in terms of cybersecurity
Mm,
certifications with their CISSP. So everything that they've been doing lately with the CC exam, plus they've also created these different certificate programs, one around
mm,
cloud security, one around CISO type knowledge, another around risk assessments. These are all really great courses. And you can go down these paths at $99 US, I think, for
yeah.
if you're a member of ISC Squared. I did all these over December, and they were really well put together.
Mm.
And if you're a badge collector like I am, you get badges as well for it. Each one of those courses get badges. Plus,
Yes.
me being a CISSP and a CCSP, it
Mm,
gets me my continued education
yeah.
credits that are needed for recertification.
And it's
Which
an
we'll have to
absolute
which we'll have to talk at the end about recertification,
yes,
because what
yes.
comes around goes around, and we didn't talk about with Microsoft. So we'll have to
No,
talk about
no,
some of
we'll
that as well.
we'll definitely do that as a whole. But yeah, no, I saw you did this recently, and I do remember asking you, what were your thoughts? Did you like it? Was it worth doing? So the answer is absolutely yes for anyone that is ISC squared certified in whether it's your CISP or your CC or your SSCP, whatever it is, they're worth doing. It's extra knowledge in the bank, and they're fun by the sounds of it, from what I hear from a lot of people.
Yeah, one of them's really fun. The one that I wish that they probably, because I don't know how long they were working on, but the first one in risk management, the conducting practical risk analysis, that first one was really cool, because you were the customer, and they were actually doing Teams calls with a consultant during that. It was like, so you were part of the risk team of a fictional trucking company, and you're talking to a CISSP through Teams calls, and so it was very, it seemed, it was like a very interactive course. And so I hope as they do updates to some of the other courses that they do a little bit more of that, because that was really really a well done a piece to it made it a fun course to take.
Very good. That's something I'm going to definitely do over this year anyways. Get into them, because if you have an interest in cybersecurity, and just learning more in general, even if you don't pursue right now your CC or your, sorry, not your CC, if you don't pursue your CISP at the moment, you can still do these even if you hold CC level credentials. So it's worth doing them and having a look.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. I don't know how much CCs are required for the CC. I've got I've got like 30 or 45,
Mm.
I think, with the
Yeah.
CISSP each year. But get your CC first before you do the certificate classes,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
you actually get, I did the test out on the cloud security ones, but the other two I did the full course, and it got me, I think the risk assessment gets you like 20, and I think
Okay.
the CISO one gets you like 16 CEC. So that's about a
Okay.
year's worth of CEC credits, plus you get the badges and everything. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I would recommend getting yourself membership by taking like the CC exam first, and then you can earn some CECs on the way with the
And
certificate programs.
most importantly, with the ISC squared, we have the 1 million certified
Yes, right.
cybersecurity. Sorry, I should have had that up there, but they do have the 1 million certified in cybersecurity, uh, free exam
Yeah,
voucher
that's
and
right.
training available to anybody that wants to do it, and they have extended it, I believe, till February. So they've extended it past the December deadline to give more people an opportunity to get started in cybersecurity.
Yeah, it's to get started though. I think I hit the get started, and I'm not eligible, being that I'm already certified in the higher level ones.
You can never have too many. Never, never. But it is a good program for people
No,
getting
yeah, I
started.
know
Yeah,
it is
yeah,
great to get started. Yeah, like I said, if you're looking at getting into cybersecurity, you don't have the knowledge yet, this is a definite, path. ISC squared has been very kind of an exclusive club for a long time,
mm,
because of the work requirements to get the
yeah,
certification after you take the test and pass the test. If you could take, anybody could take and pass the test, but you don't
mm,
actually get the certificate until you can validate your knowledge
yes.
and experience, and get somebody to
Bi-
also sign off on it. So the fact that they have these certificate programs, as well as
mm.
this CC program, the CC certification, it gets you started.
Bigger question though, Dwayne, with the recent changes for ISC squared to the CC designation being added. Um, First question, and it's not something that everyone has the answer to, and it's kind of, there's a bit of speculation here. Do you think they'll get the CC ANSI accredited at some point? With all of their ISC squares being ANSI
I
accredited?
I don't see why not.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're working on it. Um, that's a very important piece of their accreditation, and
Yeah.
why they carry such a high level of high level of prestige in the market.
Yes.
So
Yeah. And
definitely.
I think with the fact that all of them, most certification vendors at the moment that have the ANSI accreditation, the reason I say that is because the CC exam is a good exam. It gives you foundational knowledge in cybersecurity, and obviously with the push to get something out there, um, with the push to get something out there, they have had they haven't been able to fully accredit it yet. But I'm sure maybe they might bring out an advanced CC or something for the next step up, to be an intermediate between CC and CISP, just to have something there that people can work towards. Now, I know they have the SSCP, which only requires a year
Yeah.
of valid, so maybe that is their answer. And it kind of shows the way they've done it here in the picture. They have their CC, they have the SSCP, and they have CISP. So it kind of, look, maybe that's just the way they've arranged it, but it gives you an idea of where you're going or where you should be looking.
What I would like to see is a intermediate cloud certification like the SSCP, that's more more cloud based, because that is more of that associate level cloud, and intermediate level, but we'll see.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. No, as
We'll see how
we
it goes.
said,
I know they're doing a lot around. It seems like the focus that they have a lot is around building a lot more content and putting more into their and almost building up their learn environment, which is what those certificate programs are in, to be more accessible from that aspect as well. So they're doing a lot to be more accessible to more people, which is great, because then it gets the name out there more, and I think puts even more prestige around the CISSP and the CCSP.
and with that, obviously, I've had a lot of different queries from people. CISP, and to be fair, IC squared to have it bang on the button. It's not for everyone, especially not if you're getting started in your journey and you're trying to jump the ladder a bit. If look, a lot of my viewers and a lot of people that message me asking me how to get started in cybersecurity, and their attitude is, I have to get CISP. I have to get CISP. You can always get CISP. You can become an associate, which is fine, but you're not going to get the endorsement unless you have those 5 years. Not to mention, you're putting yourself under a lot of pressure to get something that you would probably naturally get it after that experience, rather than, you're saying, I'm going to sit down for a year, 2 years of my life, I'm going to give up and try and learn this material. You cannot learn CISP to that extent where it's, multiple choice, you're answering questions, you're reading them out, you're reading it out of the textbook, you're spitting it back out. No, CISP is a CAT exam. It's designed to see what way you're thinking and to see if you understand the domains properly in a real life situation. So the reason I say all that is because I've had a lot of people turn around and say, well, I studied the official CISP guide written by Mike Chappell or others. While all those guides are absolutely brilliant, there was a recent thing with the common body of knowledge that came out about CISP, that the guides had information there, but they didn't have the full amount in comparison with the CISP course. Again, let's go back to the fact that you have to have 5 years, you have to have it written, you have to get endorsed, and you have to pass the exam. So advice for people that have seen all this online, that have seen all the different routes, they don't have the experience yet, they still want to go down it. When is too early to go down for the CIS path? If you're in cybersecurity a year, is that a bit much to put on yourself?
I mean,
just
if you're under a year, or I mean, if you've got a job in cybersecurity, it never hurts to kind of start down the path of learning and understanding. How do you think like a CISO? I mean, and a CIO, and security director. That's what this is based around. Is really thinking at a business need and a business level, and for the longest time, this was one of the only exam ISC squared had, before they had the SSCP, which really is more for those operations type of people, and the people that are working under a CISO. That's what that SSCP was created for. I took this exam in 2009. It's a grueling exam. You are you feel brain dead after you take this exam.
Yeah, yeah,
It drains you. It is one of those exams that physically drains you. You are exhausted after you take this exam. So like you said, you got to like weigh yourself, or you do want to put yourself through this type of exam. And and am I at that level yet where, am I, key things you pointed out, do I have somebody, do I have the experience that's required? um and you can get some of that experience, some of those hours through taking maybe college courses. Part of what I did was I was taking a master's program that was based around the CISSP and the PMP. So out of that program, I had a certain level of experience out of that, as well as my own personal experience in my work life
mm,
to get that, to get and I had somebody that was going to endorse my level of knowledge and understanding. So you need to have those two things in place before taking the exam. Otherwise, like you said, you're beating yourself over the head for
yeah,
no apparent reason.
yeah.
But it's never really too soon to like look at the
No,
content and understand the
no,
content, because it's very helpful. It's a very, having the book of knowledge, can help you on your cybersecurity path anyway. So if
mm,
you're new to cybersecurity, it's a guide. It is a good guidebook from that standpoint. So, um,
the-
I wouldn't, like I said, if until you have the experience and you have somebody to endorse, I wouldn't recommend sitting for the exam. But it's never too early, really, to start learning the
no,
material.
absolutely. And I think that's the key word you've said for anybody watching. It's learning the material, getting used to thinking like a CISO, adapting the way you're thinking in cybersecurity to that over a period of time, rather than, instantly, oh, I've decided to take my exam next week. I don't know anything.
Yeah,
I don't know
I'm gonna
enough,
cram I'm
you
gonna
know?
cram on an online course or something like
Yeah,
that. That's
you
not
know,
how you do it,
that's
and
not how
it's
it's
not how
done.
you do it. It's not how you do it with any exam.
No,
Even like if you're doing the Azure security engineer, you got to have some practical knowledge. You got to have some understanding. You have to be in that environment to a certain degree to understand it. It's not all something that you get from doing an online course or reading a book.
yeah. And just for anyone watching, obviously Dwayne is well known in the IT realm. He he does hold CISP among many other qualifications, and he's very experienced. So all always check him out for any resources that might help in your journey. Okay, so I'm just going to move away from CISP there for a minute. Dwayne, your favorite IC squared certification to date, what is it?
I got the CCSP back in October, uh, almost to the day of when I got almost 13 years to the day of when I got my CISP. So,
Okay.
uh, but that they've done they just redid that exam in September, or August or September of last year. Uh, they reversioned that exam, um, and I was really pleased in the changes to that exam.
Okay.
I took the exam when it first came out, about 4 or 5 years ago. I'm you need, just like you need, on a scaled score. Most exams you need somewhere between 700 and 750 on a scale of 1,000. um, I got on the CCSP, when I took it, I got a 694, I believe. So I
Okay.
missed it by like one question.
Oh,
Or even part
gee.
of a question. But and those ISC squared exams are pretty expensive to take. So
Mm,
um,
you're
so
you're and I'll interrupt you there for 1 minute. As someone said to me once, you're not in the habit of making generous donations to ISC Squared, no more than
yeah,
you are to Microsoft or CompTIA or Cisco
exactly,
or any of them.
exactly.
Yeah.
The reason I have so many Microsoft certificates behind me is because as an MCT I had a pretty sizable discount for those exams, or
Yeah.
they were free from through my company because with
Yeah.
vouchers and things like that. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I really like I really like what they did with the CCSP exam.
Mm.
It gives a very broad, again, vendor independent look at cloud security and how to plan plan for cloud security. One of the things my next step is actually looking at the uh, the CAP exam for ISC Square, which is their risk and compliance exam based on the NIST risk framework. So
Mm.
I'm looking forward to kind of diving down that one as well. But the CCSP, for if you're looking for a vendor independent exam, it's not it's again you need to know your stuff, know and understand, just like you do with CISP. But it's more
Yeah.
cloud based. It's the cloud version of the CISP exam. It doesn't get as on-prem based as CISP does. So if you're around cloud security, I think the reason I passed it this time and why, and the difference between 5 years ago is I've taught and taken all of the Microsoft security exams too.
Yes.
And so being around cloud security on a regular basis, it translated a lot better in this case than it did 5 years ago when I was just starting to go down cloud security.
And just before just to look at the next thing. So we're going to briefly touch on them. I don't have obviously certification myself in either offensive security or Giac certifications. Just have you much I suppose uh what's the best way of putting it? Have you any experience with either of these vendors? For me, offensive is relatively very new on the market. I haven't really heard of them. Obviously, they seem to be doing well because people are taking the exams. GAIAC have been around a long time. I am well aware of their presence,
Mhm.
both being very expensive providers for certification. Um, Added value of having them as a provider or a vendor? Do you go down that route if you're doing IT support, help desk, a bit of cybersecurity, bit of cloud? What are your thoughts on it in general
I mean,
on both on GAIAC
it
to start with
depends. Yeah, it
first?
depends a lot on I think, yeah, on where you're going as a career. You have different things in terms of like the SANS Institute and ISACA um, and the Cloud Security Alliance. You got EC Council. Um,
Mm.
so there's a lot of different directions you can go for cybersecurity, and to get more granular into certain things, like you're showing with the GIAC and the digital forensics and
Mm.
things of that nature. If you're involved in that, the data sciences of cybersecurity, these are definitely directions to go.
Okay.
um but they're not ones that I've myself have dove into. I'm much more at the kind of architectural and administrative
Mm.
level in
'Cause
from my standpoint, but
I
yeah.
mean they're starting at a pretty hefty price, to be honest, for what they are. Now, obviously, a lot of companies seem to be featuring them on their requirements, but is that because companies are just adding a shopping list? They want people with nearly every vendor at this stage. I mean, you're going to see Offensive, you're going to see Cisco, you're going to see GAIAC, you're going to see ITIL, Prince, PMP, Microsoft, ISC squared. I mean, the list goes on. When is too much too much? I mean, it's fine if you're
Yeah.
not footing the bill, if your company's footing it and they want you to do all this. But as someone who would be getting started in their career, maybe there's and we'll talk about it in a sec. Maybe there's other options that might be just slightly cheaper than this, you know.
Yeah, and
Not taking
that's the
away from
thing.
a good, there are good providers, obviously, and good certifications, but they're just on the more expensive side.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it depends. I always say, I actually just wrote a blog about, some things to think about when you're going down the path to a cybersecurity certification, and one of those is cost. If you're doing this and funding this all yourself, um, it's kind of finding that balance and finding, what you can bear and what those what that cost is going to be. Build yourself a budget, build yourself a timeline, and go about that. When somebody is looking at a candidate, yeah, they're going, certifications are going to help open people's eyes, but never, I don't ever think that they're ever a hard requirement, necessarily. If
Mm.
they're asking for, a Microsoft certification, or an AWS certification, or a ISC squared, or a CompTIA certification, what a certification does for you is it shows a prospective employer that that you you understand that particular content. You've taken some level of ownership in learning that content, and you've then shown through passing that exam, the a fun a base, a level of knowledge of that content. So
Yeah.
so any certification that you have is going to potentially help you stand out and help and benefit you, because employers are going to see the fact that you've made a commitment. There's a
Mm.
commitment to getting any certification.
Yeah.
And some of them look better than others. And some may be more specific to a job site, to a
Mm.
job. So those are all things to think about. I laugh about something that goes around social media every once in a while, where somebody, where a job description said that you have to have, like 20 years of Kubernetes experience, and Kubernetes hasn't been around for 20 years. So
Yeah.
a lot of times there's copy and paste things from job
Mm.
descriptions
Yeah.
that people use that don't really matter at all. So
And I think the key thing is there as well. People people need to realize that the employers will put in as many certification providers as they feel are relevant to the job, but it doesn't mean that you are required to have all of them. It just
right.
means they want to see a varied level of, you might have gone down the Microsoft route, you might have gone down the AWS, you might have gone down the IC squared or the ISACA or the EC Council. So it's a shopping list to a point, but it's also to give the candidate an idea of what they're going to be working with as well within that job opportunity, that career. Obviously, with you being an AWS certified um, professional, I just wanted to bring this up. AWS do have
Hmm.
a fantastic cloud practitioner foundational level, which has
Yep.
no prior experience needed. Good place for someone to start with AWS.
Oh, definitely. That's just like the Azure fundamentals. That almost very similar exams between the two. I had my AWS cloud practitioner, but I let it expire a couple years ago. But now I have my solution architect associate. I'm
So
working on a security specialty. Um, and I'll point out, I took the security specialty exam. I did not pass it the first time. Another one you're required on. uh, uh, Microsoft Microsoft uses the 700 minimum on 1,000 point scale for all of their
mm,
exams. One of the things AWS does is, as you go up tiers, they they up the minimum level. So practitioner is a 700 on 1,000, associate's a 725, the professional and specialty are 750s. I got a 734. So
yeah,
so again,
but
and a 60 question exam that's scaled to 1,000, there was
mm,
probably a question or two that I missed it by. Um, but again, I don't have as much experience around AWS as I do Microsoft, hands-on
Mm,
and all of those things. So, it really, the hands-on understanding around it, rather than just book learning and trying
mm,
to take a course. Those are definite requirements, especially when you get to the specialty and professional and expert level type of exams. You could get away with it on the foundational and the fundamentals of just, going through an
a book,
online
yeah.
module like AWS has a 7-hour course that partners have free access to, and Microsoft has Microsoft Learn. You can go through those and pass those exams. You can't for associate, professional, expert
Mm,
level courses. You've got to get in to the environment and play in those environments and have a real detailed understanding around all of that.
yeah. And that's actually some good advice just for anyone going down the AWS route as well. Again, Dwayne, I presume you're always reachable if someone wants to ask the question if they're not
Oh
sure.
yeah.
You're very approachable as always. Now, obviously, I'll be shot if I don't mention ISACA because they are very well known as well. Again, to the viewers, this is just a tabletop exercise. It's not an in-depth review of all the exam providers. We haven't even covered half of them here. It's
No.
just the most popular ones. Obviously, CISM being one of the biggest, and CISA.
Yeah.
And of course, if you're in cybersecurity, the CDPSE is a good one. Any out of the 8 that are present there, what would you be looking at for someone if they're getting started with ISACA?
Yeah,
Dwayne.
those first three are probably the most common that I've seen out there. you know Osaka is another one that you got to put in your budget for that,
Mm,
because just becoming a member of Osaka, I've looked at that before, is a
it's
pretty
pretty
hefty bill.
hefty. Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
but again, Osaka, they have their own conference. They are very heavy out there in terms of cybersecurity. So
Um,
they definitely carry a lot of prestige out in the
the
out in the marketplace.
and I know we're going back to CISP here a bit for a sec, but CISM and CISP, it's recommended that if you've taken your CISP to go take your CISM, if you are doing the ISACA route. What's
Mhm.
your thoughts on that? Would you say the crossover is definitely there?
I haven't taken any ISACA exams,
Okay.
but I know a lot of people that have the CISP uh, letters that also have the CISM.
Hmm.
I think you're accurate there, definitely in your statement. Um, to definitely look at it. Like I said, that the CISM, the CRISC, the CISA are all ones that carry a lot of prestige, and
Hmm.
a lot of people, and a lot of the same people that get the ISC squares generally have an ISACA. I
But
haven't gone down that route myself.
obviously, full disclaimer: anybody looking at these and looking at CISP and that have done them, obviously, still do your own research. Don't take my word for it, but do your own
Yeah,
research and see how common the domain
yeah,
crossover is, and due diligence on your own part. But it's just from what I've seen, CISM and CISP seem to go part and part if you're going down
yeah.
that route. And obviously, you've had your spoke on it as well. Now, obviously, with that being said, we're finally on to what people have probably waited for to see all evening. Obviously, I've shown no favoritism towards CompTIA. So CompTIA are the one of the main vendor neutral certifications. What are your thoughts on CompTIA? Just
CompTIA has been around for a while, and a lot of companies have different opinions about CompTIA. But one of the great things is they have built a good core of certifications that have been around for a while. The A plus, the Network plus, the Security plus have been around for quite a long time.
mm,
The IT fundamentals is, again, a good place to start. If you're new to IT, just understand IT. if you want to understand the infrastructure and servers, when Microsoft had their MCSE and MCSA, around Windows servers and Windows operating systems. It was always good to start with the CompTIA because it gives you those foundational levels before you start getting into the more advanced
Yeah.
specifics around Active Directory and things like that. You've got Server Plus. They've I think Linux Plus is a little bit newer, but they've had the Server Plus for quite a while. That's one of
Yes.
kind of their
Yeah.
flagship, one of their flagships, and obviously they've added Cloud Plus. They have
Yeah.
a very nice cybersecurity piece. Yeah, you got the data for data analytics, but
And
they've got
just before you go into cybersecurity, we leave that
yeah.
for a sec. So they have the Data Plus, which is relatively new. Let's be fair.
Yeah, I
So
think that
there's
one's,
still
I haven't seen that one in a while.
there's a bit
Yep.
there's a bit of development there, but what you call it? We'll just add the additional professionals. Cloud Essentials again is obviously a skimmed down version of Cloud Plus. It's very basic
Yep.
cloud knowledge, but of course, what CompTIA do have is their Project Plus, which is, it's been around a while now at this stage.
Yep, I've had that one. I've had that one since about 2008, I think.
Yeah.
So,
So
that's the CompTIA one that I have as Project Plus. It's very foundation. It's a good, if anybody is in project management and is looking to somewhere along the line get their PMI, PMP. This is very, very much aligned with that methodology. So, and it's kind of it's not as in depth as the PMP, but a good exam to kind of give you a foundational methodology around Project Plus. If you're a trainer, the CTT Plus is actually is one of the courses you can take around training to get your Microsoft certified trainer as well.
But it is to be noted, just before we say too much on
it is
CTT,
retiring.
it
Yes,
is
retiring this year
as of March 31st. So just before people say that, oh, that's retiring, it is retiring. Yes.
Thanks for
And
pointing that out. I had not noticed that.
if you get it, it's a good for life cert, and that's it. But just remember, that is the absolute deadline. And I know as a CompTIA head, I have to remind people of that when I point out CTT is an exam. It's also a retiring exam, so they're finished with it now. I can't really speculate. I don't know what's coming up to, if there's ever going to be a replacement for it, but it was a good exam when it started, because it worked for your Microsoft certified trainer, which was great for renewals. Now, obviously, CompTIA have been in the news a lot over the last few years with their CISA, which was originally named the CSA Plus, which it still is on documentation for documentation purpose, but for legal reasons, it was renamed CISA. So just a bit about these, Dwayne. Just if any advice for people going them, CISA being intermediate, pen test being intermediate, CAS being the most advanced here. So just
again, as you choose your path and you go down your certifications, if you want to be vendor independent and don't want to be Microsoft or AWS or Google, this is a good place to go and good place to start, because the experience level isn't quite as high as like a CISP, as ISC squared has, but there is still some security requirements. It's a little bit less expensive than like ISACA and some of their cybersecurity their membership. Again, the CISA gives a broad brush for security analysis and working in kind of that architecture base. The pen test obviously is self-explanatory, how to do penetration testing, and then the professional obviously gives you that that advanced level as well. So all they've done a really good job with their cybersecurity. Usually they've just been kind of like that starter certification, with the
Mm.
Cloud Plus and Security Plus and everything. They've kind of taken it a step further with the cybersecurity area, which is very impressive.
Something a lot of people have that I've seen in the different groups on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter or any of them really. A lot of people are quite confused still. I don't know why, but obviously you might have seen this. They don't understand that the CAS Plus is pass fail only, no more than the CISP is pass fail
Okay.
only. Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
that would be standard for that kind of level exam, wouldn't it, Dwayne? To be honest, and the experience recommendations as well.
Yeah, the only time like with the ISC squared that you find out your score is if you failed.
Right.
They don't and I don't know if they when I passed my CCSP, I didn't know what score I passed on. Same thing with my CISP. I just got the congratulations, you passed the exam. And to be truthful, from my perspective, I don't care. A pass is a pass. If you pass on the number or you get a 900 out of 1,000, you still passed. The certificate's the same, the badge is the same. Yeah, maybe you gotta maybe from your own personal standpoint, you feel that you need to understand those a little bit better, but that is what it is. When I passed the like the data engineering certs for Microsoft, I got just I think one of them, I think I did pass on the number. I had to take it. I took it as the 2 exams. I passed it on the number. I was happy I passed. I'm not a data. I'm not a data engineer, but I did what I wanted to do to. I sat and I learned in the portal about Data Factory and all of those things, but I didn't. It wasn't like I was going to teach others that exam or work in data engineering. I just wanted to learn it. So, so a pass is a pass. I expect myself to pass a little bit higher when I do a security exam, but if I don't, then it's because I didn't probably put the time in myself into it to deeply understand it and to do as much hands-on. That's usually my shortfall, is I don't have enough time to spend like in the portals and things like that to learn to learn what I'm doing.
But you've also been doing it for 20 plus years, so when you're good, you're good. Just I don't know, right? And this, we're not going to get into too much controversy over this. This is just a bit of fun for anyone watching. CASP v CISP. Why not CASP and CISP?
Right.
I think that's the better question people should be asking. Because I recently did a video on CASP. While CASP, CASP has its quirks, CISP has its quirks. CASP has a simulation-based environment in it. CISP doesn't. One is managerial, one is technical, and that's the best way of explaining them, really, isn't it? Like CISP is managerial and cybersecurity. CASP is technical and cybersecurity, if that makes sense to the viewers. Mm-hmm. So you're not really, because I mean, you can go tit for tat when you look at it for both sides, both ISC squared and CompTIA. But what really it should be saying is CASP and CISP, Mm-hmm. That's my attitude. Where I started was naturally CASP, because that I went down the CompTIA route, but obviously I'm going to transition over now and do the CISP. But for others that are going the CISP route, should you still go the CASP route if that's something that tickles your fancy, kind of?
I mean, if
what do you think?
I think it's good to have the managerial and the practical knowledge around both, depending on what you're doing. I always try to have a well-rounded aspect to how I do things, and like to be able to, even if I'm not an engineer or hands-on on a day-to-day basis, be able to talk to somebody that is and have their respect. And so, so anything that brings practical hands-on knowledge, I'm all for and welcome. So yeah, and if even if and for those that are hands-on, and and more around the practical knowledge of the CASP, uh, is is from a CISP standpoint, you understand maybe how the people above you think. So if you're
Mm.
trying to get budgeting for new security controls, you can hopefully understand the perspective that they're coming from a managerial level as well. It's always good
Yeah.
to be well-rounded um, and be empathetic to other people
Mm.
within, with that are around you, and go from those, have different perspectives.
I think the biggest thing is, and I've seen it with obviously yourself, Dwayne. You give a lot to the communities, and I suppose that's the thing. People, as times change and we get more tech tech professionals into the communities and the groups and certification and the on the job experience, I suppose the main thing to always remember as an IT professional is that you're continuously learning. So whether it's CompTIA, whether it's Microsoft, whether it's ISC squared, ISACA, EC Council, or any of them really, um, continuous education is key in your journey as an
Yeah.
IT professional. And yeah,
Something to point out around that, all of these certifications require some level of continuous education anyway to maintain those certifications, whether it's through courses and training and community involvement like ISC squared does, or annual assessments like Microsoft does for their certifications. AWS and Google require you to retake the exam every 3 years, which is
yeah,
something that I don't really agree with.
yeah.
My PMI, I don't use my PMP all that regularly, uh, but but I have to continue to do learning and
Mm,
CECs that I need to enter in on a 3-year scale as well.
yeah,
Those are all things I know. I believe CompTIA, some of
yeah.
those cybersecurity ones, you do have to retake those exams every 3 years. Some of those other ones, like the Project Pluses, I've had that for 15 years, and haven't had to do anything with it. It's just perpetual. So, but yeah,
I suppose with that, for like for the likes of IC squared, you have your CPEs and you have your AMF, obviously your fees. You also have with CompTIA your CEUs, or you've your different methods. You can do with one certification, you could do it through CertMaster, or you could do it through earning another vendor certification. Obviously, check out the CompTIA list of approved
gotcha.
exams for all vendors for their exams. Um, the biggest thing here being, and I do want to ask the question. So there's a lot of things on Reddit and forums and all that kind of stuff. Um, CISP, and it's a question a lot of people, or some people won't answer, some people will, and it's a nice question to ask because it says a lot about the person answering it. CISP, people have it out there that you go, you get your CISP or your CASP or whatever it may be, whatever the industry gold standard is out there, you go out and you get it. Does that does not automatically mean that, oh, you're on that level, or you're on that scale salary, or you're getting that that job advancement to that level. It just means you validated the not you validated your knowledge, but you still have to work towards that. you know it's
Hmm.
it's it's something that was pointed out by a good pal, a good friend of mine, and he said certification, the salaries that are out there for IT professionals are based off knowledge, certification, and experience. So that's something a lot of professionals need to remember going into IT. It's not going to be instantaneously. You go off, you get your CISP after 3 to 5 years, and you'll instantly be taking away 200 grand a year. You're not,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Don't expect to get pass the certification and it immediately up you in pay grade.
Yeah,
There may be, there there may be from a professional development standpoint, certain steps that you have to get merit performance increases. Those are things. What I say is it's a like you said, it's a validation of your knowledge to a certain degree, but practical knowledge also in a lot of ways trumps that, and your understanding, and it may open doors for you with other opportunities.
mm,
But yeah, but if you think that taking this particular exam is going to immediately give you a pay bump, then
you're
uh,
mistaken.
you're mistaken. My wife always asks me, well, when I pass an exam, she's like, well, did you get a pay raise for that? I'm like, no. She goes, well, why did you take it?
Yeah, yeah, and you know something? Yeah,
She's in education though, so you get in the United States, when you know basically your contracts are written by your experience and your degree status
mm,
is how your
yeah,
salary works.
yeah,
It's not so the amount of years you've been teaching, plus if you've gotten your master's degree or your doctorate degree, or
yeah,
you've gotten taken 15 credits at the university, those are all ways that you can increase your pay.
yeah.
It's much different in the in our sector, and understanding and having that practical experience, and for that role, and being able to prove that
Prove
experience
that.
is definitely the most important. Certifications are just validation, as well as it brings a lot. It something that I always say though around certifications, when you get certifications, um, especially like if you're a Microsoft partner, an AWS partner, or a Google partner, um, you can use that as leverage for companies that are partners with that you're helping them in their partner status with those organizations. So those become valuable to the company as well. So don't discount it that it's not valuable to the company, and could be something to help you in negotiation for that job, but don't expect it.
Yeah, and I suppose one other thing, and a lot of people forget this, it doesn't matter how highly certified you are. It doesn't matter how highly educated you are or how much experience you are. The biggest thing to remember in your journey as an IT professional is, I suppose, staying humble and being helpful to others, and that's what makes our community awesome, especially the
Hmm.
MVPs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Nobody enjoys somebody that has a me too attitude, has a
mm,
me
mm,
attitude. It's always a me too and a we attitude is
yeah.
definitely something that goes a long way, and why, you know, why we become MVP, why we get nominated to be MVPs and
Yeah,
continue to maintain MVPs. I got a lot of people that I reach out to when I get myself into a particular jam, or
mm,
people that reach out to me about that need help. You've got this community that, if for some reason you find yourself on hard times, you lose your job, you've got people that are gonna jump to help you.
yeah.
That's one of the great things about the community overall.
And you can't be shy in our industry. You have to just get yourself out there and get started. So, Dwayne, look, I won't keep you any longer. As always, it's really nice to have you, and I appreciate you taking the time out. Um, one last thing. Any advice for
Yeah.
people getting started in IT? Just if you had to say it to yourself 20 years ago, what would you say to yourself before you had all the exams, before you had all the experience? What would you say to get you motivated in your
I
career?
mean, it's I have an always be learning attitude. There's always something to learn, and having a willingness to learn, and to network and communicate with others is probably the best advice I can give anybody. Don't you said it yourself, just a few minutes ago. Put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to. Um, whether you're new to IT or you're a seasoned veteran, reach out, reach out to me, reach out to Matt, reach out to any other MVP out there. We're all willing to help. We're all willing to give guidance. I wish I 35 years ago, or whatever it is at this point. I had more mentors. I had a really good mentor that really kind of pushed me into IT and into management and that when I was in my early 20s. That kind of got me there, but then it took me another like 15 years or so to really get my footing. So don't be afraid to ask for help and ask for somebody to give you guidance, and give you direction. And like I said, having an attitude of empathy and understanding for others, and openness, and an attitude to always continuously be learning and finding ways to make yourself better is all things that that definitely are something that's gotten me where I am today at this point.
Yeah, and it's clearly seen in all that you've accomplished, Dwayne, to be fair. So hats off to you, and keep doing the great work you do as part of the AWS and the MVP community. So look, thanks a million, Dwayne, for coming onto the meeting and giving us
Yeah.
some tips, tricks, and advice. So really appreciate it. All right.
Thank you, Matt. Anytime, and feel free to reach out to me if anybody has any questions about what we talked about.
Perfect. Perfect.